now. Okay, so welcome to another town hall. We're just getting started here, and Alexander popped in just to share a quick update. We're just going to take a look at some work he's doing in Onshape before we start our usual meeting here. So, let's see, share my screen. Okay. This is related to the print in place Phoenix.
Uh-huh.
Nice. Now, what happened? So where's all like the support structures and everything that you had modeled in?
The last decision that we made was that we don't need that. That can be generated by the user. And I've also tested it at various sizes. And yes, just generating them as the software has the defaults is just fine.
That sounds good, except unless I'm mistaken, I don't think you want defaults. I think you need to set supports to only touching build plate, because otherwise you're going to get supports inside all the channels and stuff like that.
Ideally, yes, if people can select that, it's better. But I've also made a test with all supports.
Really?
Just
okay.
in case.
Maybe it's because of the angles. Maybe it doesn't fill in those channels. If we can confirm that, that would be good to know. Because usually, if you don't use that option, you get supports all like inside there, and they're kind of hard.
It does depend on the angle. So the supported angle needs to be, I believe, about
60
above
degrees.
55.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this looks good. So you got all the parts in here now, and so. How does this work, Alexander? Everything scales uniformly, I assume, and then you just print it as is and assemble, right?
Yes.
So the hand doesn't need any assembly. That prints in place, and then you would just need to snap on the thermoform the cuff and snap it together and do your strings. Nice.
This version doesn't have the... in this version, you have to make a copy to actually edit the variable, because this one is meant for end-use software. I will send the link in a second with another one that can be edited directly without needing to make an Onshape copy.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and create a copy that people can access? And then do you want to just share that in the hub?
Sure. I believe this might already be shared, but sure.
I don't know if we got this into the device catalog yet. It might be waiting on me, but obviously that's the ideal. But if you can't get it into the catalog, let's at least post something in the forum. Well, thank you for sharing that update, Alexander. That's very cool. And that was very quick. And welcome those who have joined us. Let me just adjust my windows here a bit. Okay, so we've got our live stream going on YouTube. Anyone there is welcome to use the chat. We'll try to keep an eye on that. For those in the meeting, it's there in the lower right corner, so help me to keep an eye on that. Who is able to help with notes today? And are you in a good position to do that?
John
I am.
am.
Okay, great.
I raised my hand. I can also help. So
Ben and John. Perfect.
Then
All right.
then it's on Ben.
You we'll have John be back up. Action items. Ben was going to see if we could arrange a presentation with Jack Buchanan, which he did, and we have scheduled for the 29th of this month, and I am so looking forward to that. So actually, it's worth mentioning that the next 2 weeks are going to have special presentations. So today, I think we'll be continuing some of the discussion we've been having, kind of the big picture community discussion, and this week will be our last week to have that discussion for right now. Then we'll take a pause for a couple of guest presentations, and then regroup on the far side of that. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that one off. Jeremy, write up a Lumio discussion thread, including a proposed pay amount for the Matching Platform Analysis Fellowship. Now, I was holding off on this, and I'm still holding off on this because we had a nice discussion with our friends at Deloitte. Ed seemed interested. Have we heard anything back from him, Ben?
I haven't since the meeting last week, but I did follow up, I think, with notes.
Okay. So it's fine. I mean, he has a lot going on, but I think we should still hold off on posting this because I think they are, they'd be kind of an ideal candidate to help us with this if they have somebody available. And he seemed to be optimistic that they would. So I'm going to let that play out.
I would recommend sharing it in the new member meetup today, though, as part of, we've got our laundry list.
Yeah, if we're presenting the whole list of needs, then yeah, I definitely won't leave it out.
Great.
Ben, speak with Kyle about the potential FlashForge and/or Creality partnership. Any new discussions there?
You can actually leave that on the list, but it's sort of in the queue because I'm going to see if I can wrap up the Dean Rock article. John's been helping me with that this week. It's a significant thing. It's sort of like a 5-part article. I just finished, I think, the final draft of it this morning. I sent a piece of that to Kyle, and he's going to use that and supported by the article to talk to Creality. So it seems like that would be sort of the best strategy.
Perfect. I just moved it down here under action items. That'll take some time. John, working following up with school, or John and Ben following up with schools about internships. Have we heard anything through that handshake? Is that the program? Yeah. Have we heard anything through that?
We haven't heard anything through it, but we had a great meeting with Ian Roy yesterday.
That's right. And we actually got an email from him and have a meeting being scheduled now. He seems very interested in helping. So thank you for that. I think there was actually another reply that I haven't gotten to. So I'll get to that after this meeting, but my guess is that we'll be meeting within a week or so. So that's good progress.
I guess as an update to that as well, we have been accepted through Handshake by Brandeis as of this morning. So
nice. So that kind of
Roy is on the case, and he said that he'd look over our account this coming week and help out with preparing us. Now that'll help us not just for Brandeis, but sort of to have a presence with U.S. universities.
Well, so this is good timing. We're doing the new member meetup today, and if I can go over the list of needs, maybe we can send a copy of the recording over to Ian so he has a preview of what we'll be talking about. That's great.
Exactly.
All right.
I think he's going to plan to join us.
Oh, even better. All right, so on we go. Upcoming special guest presentations. As I mentioned, we have the next 2 weeks booked. So Saif Savage will be presenting a research paper, Understanding the Care Ecosystems of 3D Printed Assistive Devices next week. And then the following week, we'll have Jack Buchanan presenting the exciting Kwau 3.0 design. We've looked at some video clips of different aspects of that, and it looks unbelievable. I'm super impressed with his work, so I'm looking forward to that one. Is Alexander still here? No, he already dropped off. We got to make sure he's aware of that. He will definitely want to see that one. Okay, metrics are here. I don't think there was much to call. Oh, hold on. This doesn't look like the current one. Maybe this didn't update. Okay, I'm just going to show it on screen. Here's the current metrics, because we're up to, I think, 202 chapters. I saw we had a new one. Interesting note, we're at an even 2,500 members as far as number of volunteers registered on the hub. That's kind of a cool milestone. Otherwise, things are pretty typical as far as activity goes. Still sitting with a very healthy balance in the e-NABLE fund. Hint, 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 folks. Okay, on we go. From the hub, we got some posts to look at. One from Masby, who's with us. Excellent. So Masby shared a wrist brace splint that he used and shared a photo of that here and a link to the design on Thingiverse. Masby, care to offer any additional comments on this? I'm just looking at his comments down here. Total filament usage is around 40 grams, maybe around 5 hours of print time. So that prints flat and then it gets thermoform. But for some context, this is what we were talking in the chapter leaders roundtable about, whether there is a role for our community to play in the scenario happening in Ukraine and the refugees and people being affected by that. It was pretty well agreed that there's some risks doing things like tourniquets, and that 3D printing might not be even the best approach for that. Injection molding probably makes more sense, but something like this, a thermoform splint or brace, looks promising. And there was another link that was shared, and I should have captured it here. Here we go. Eric Bubar shared this link that Prussia has, and they have quite a few interesting looking designs for braces and fingers and hands and these different types of splints, and those seem to be a very good fit for our community and capabilities. So anyone else?
By
the way.
Oh, say again, Masby?
Oh, you hear me? Good. Very good.
I do.
Very good. Very good. For comments, so I put in a brief overview Ben asked about the filament stuff. So I put in a brief overview how at least the process that I took to form it, and yeah, it's fairly straightforward, but it is a little bit fiddly because you need to thermoform it on the recipient, on their hand.
Mhm.
So the temperature.
I will point out, I
temperature-
see in your comments here that you say PLA is a must, that you don't want to even be using the PLA pluses or whatever. Some of those do have a higher temperature resistance, but I do want to point out that it's pretty common to find a tough PLA, which is different from a PLA plus. So a tough PLA will have a higher strength, but it does not increase the temperature resistance, and it thermoforms just as well. So that would be a nice option.
I have a PLA blend, which is supposed to be a sort of a tough something, whatever.
Yeah,
And
it's going to vary by
I
brand.
I didn't use it for the splint, but I did try to use it for a Phoenix hand for the cuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
for the cuff. For the Phoenix arm, for the cuff, for the bicep cuff.
Mhm.
And I couldn't form it. It was
That's
just
interesting
too
because
resistant.
I've done PET G before even, and PET G you certainly have to heat it for a longer period of time. It takes longer for it to get to that deforming temperature, but I actually did a assembly tutorial video on the Phoenix using PET G showing that thermoforming. So it might depend on the process being used. Were you using a heat gun or hot water, or what were you using for the thermoforming?
So initially I used hot water, the way
Okay.
that we usually do PLA. So with just boiling water, it wasn't pliable.
Okay.
And
How
then
long
after I tried
did
to
you
do
try leaving it
do
in the water longer? Because I
Oh
like
yeah.
because I used hot water. That's what we did in the video. We used hot water. It was near boiling, and we had to leave the PET G in for about, I'd say, close to 30 seconds, but it did work then.
I probably left it for a minute or so, and it was sort of pliable, but not enough
Not
to bend it
enough.
over the buck.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I tried to do the heat gun, which kind of worked, but it just mangled the part. Like it sort of, well, we've
You
all
know,
been there probably when you overheated a part, and it
So
was very,
so
very
P
difficult.
so PLA is ideal because
Mhm.
you need the best possible thermoforming for this. It really needs to fit well. And as I think about it, I guess you really don't need anything extraordinary in the way of strength. It's just about holding the limb shape. So that makes sense.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, to add to our look at things outside of typical devices supporting the refugee community, this is a little bit maybe out there, but I've been working on a project here in Rochester, New York, supporting Afghan refugees in resettlement. And one of the things, in a previous lifetime, I was working doing sports development in Afghanistan and Cambodia and South Africa, and with skateboarding. And it's sort of a long story, but one of the things that's required for doing those kind of sports development programs are safety equipment, wrist guards, elbow pads, knee pads, which can be pretty expensive. So I'd be interested to follow up about this design for wrist guards to see if that could be a project.
Well, then I think we are gonna at that point we will care about impact resistance,
Right.
certainly. So we'd have to test some other materials, but it's a possibility for sure. And remember, this also part of it is the design itself is relevant. Maybe by adjusting the geometry, you could make it easier to thermoform even with some of the more higher strength or higher temp materials. So anyway, interesting stuff. Thank you for sharing that, Mazvi. And I added in the other link for Prusha there on the post for anyone interested in that. And I hope that discussion continues because we kind of left it hanging, but I do think there's opportunity. It's all about finding the right connections. We need somebody that's on the ground, has contact with the people that would benefit from something like this, and can help to clarify sort of what they need or can use. And so I think we're waiting for that human connection at this point.
Regarding rigidity, the device is really cool in the way that I'm
Hold
not
on,
sure if it's very
spotlight you.
clear. Hold on, let me try to figure out my cave lighting. There we go.
Go.
So you can see these extra ribs right over here.
Yep.
They provide a lot of rigidity.
That's
to
excellent.
the
So that
device itself.
that holds its shape in the length, but still allows it to be formed in the other direction. That's very
And then
cool.
there's also a similar ribbed feature on the other side.
Yeah,
There we
that's
go.
very smart design.
This one.
Yeah. And they do have typical wrist guards. They sort of have like a harder piece that you can sort of clip in, which could be possible if just.
So
Yeah.
all of this is purely cosmetic. So, realistically, we could create our own pattern. And just having these ribbed features for extra rigidity really helps. And then the outer brim, there's sort of a border, which again helps with the
Nice.
rigidity.
It's a really nice
This
design.
is
Yeah.
formed for my fiance. Oh, it kind of fits me. Let me quickly put it on.
Definitely a good project for schools too, as something that students could scale and size and learn about
themselves.
thermoforming and print flat.
The sizing for this is, personally, I believe that probably something like, print a few 80 whatever percent sized, which would be probably for children or just more delicate hands. But this is, you
Most of
can
them are
form
one
it
size.
really easily and manipulate the shape that way.
The one you made for your fiance, was that because she needed one, or were you just using her as a test subject?
She needed one.
So how did it actually work for her then?
It worked beautifully. So she was having onsets of RSI or something to that extent. And it was really, and her wrist was very painful. So this helped her, keep it in. Of course, it's because it's not formed for me.
Yeah.
All of these gaps, but it's very comfortable. It looks cool. It doesn't
It does.
anything like the sort of default vanilla one size fits all braces.
It's interesting. In this case, it actually looks more advanced than the kind that you typically get from a hospital or whatever.
But you can probably see what I mean by the importance of these ribs.
Yep. That's really what's holding it in place. Yeah.
They hold the shape a lot more, and everything else is just.
It's also a lot more breathable
cosmetic.
than like the wrist guards that we're using in the programs with the Afghan youth. And we have had issues with, some of the pads don't fit. Some kids are bigger than others. It'd be a neat project to be able to, scale bigger ones if you need it and print them out.
And also, probably a non-intentional feature of this is specifically this lip, because you can thermoform it. You can keep it sort of open and gaping up like this, so that you have more flexibility for your fingers. But if you want to keep the upper palm more rigid, you can just thermoform it shut, and so it will be more difficult to manipulate the fingers, which could be a pro and con depending on the situation. But because we can thermoform it any way we want, we can just thermoform it out of the way if we need to.
And in terms of comfort, she had no issues wearing it for longer periods of time?
Absolutely nothing.
That's great.
An auxiliary strap on that frontmost corner would be another way of adjusting that flap that you were just talking about. That looks so good and so custom fit that I'm wondering whether that's an approach we should think about for hands, whether you could mount fingers on the back.
Oh, remember the key
like
difference, John, is with a splint, the whole point is you don't want the wrist to move. And with our devices, you need the wrist to move. So, but for parts of the hand, I mean, in terms of using that kind of a pattern of leaving it open and breathable, that has some interesting potential. Maybe even if it's just for the cuff component or
right.
Yeah.
And we have had a number of, we often get cases of people who've got their thumbs but have lost their fingers.
We're going to look at one of those next, actually. So why don't we use that as an opportunity to move on here? Because Daniel Kroll posted a note that he's seeking an arm device. Well, actually, it's the next one that I was thinking of, but we'll go to this one first. So Daniel is seeking an arm device, but he didn't think we have anything that can help him. He was basically saying, "Hey, wonderful work, you guys, but I'm going to say goodbye." And Alexander and Ben were kind enough to jump in and say, whoa, don't leave so quick, and basically started asking some questions, let's explore this a little bit further, and encouraging him to stick around. And I just thought that was worth highlighting as a good example that, just because we don't have what somebody needs today doesn't mean that we won't have it tomorrow. So I agree, do stick around. And we have people that can help come up with custom things if it's not something that we have currently. In fact, people like Alexander get very excited by those sorts of challenges. So I just wanted to share this one. Anyone else have any comments on this or questions? Okay, so we'll just encourage Daniel to stick around, give us a chance to see if maybe we can come up with something. And this was the one I was just referring to then. Alejandro says that he's seeking a device for somebody that has sort of a non-standard anatomy. This is like what John was just saying, missing some fingers, and is looking for a suggestion from us. And Chinwei gave an interesting link here saying, hey, check this out. This has some interesting. So this is somebody that was just blogging about their work making some, trying to make a device for a kid from Iraq. But embedded in here are all kinds of interesting links for different types of thumbless and custom hands. And I'll be willing to bet that we don't have some of these on our radar. So it was interesting to me that we kind of come across things like this sometimes with these interesting resources that we didn't know about. This strikes me as a great role for a volunteer, that somebody that can kind of be keeping an eye out for designs or resources like this that we might not have been aware of. And when they pop up on a post like this, let's grab those. Let's, check out their licenses. Let's bring them into our catalog. Let's make sure that we're sharing these, with the rest of the community. And I don't think we really do a great job of that right now. This post will eventually get buried, and this resource that we're looking at will get kind of lost. So,
in the conversation with Ian from Brandeis, he pointed out that he thinks that one of their real strengths is in documentation. And so he's going to be looking at the device catalog in particular. We pointed out that, I'm so sorry, what's our male intern from Brandeis?
Kevin.
Kevin's work on the hub has already been a substantial step in that direction based on Isabel's work before her. Yep. So that's a good example, Jeremy, of the kind of function that they might take on.
That would be wonderful. So, all right, we'll pursue that and have a follow-up discussion with Ian. That's very promising. Okay, so those are the posts that got the most commenting and interest this week. There's, of course, lots more, but I just like to highlight a few. So here's our upcoming events, and the one we have today is the new member meetup, and I'll be presenting a summary of our current needs and hopefully getting some people to take on some of those roles. We'll see what happens. But as we know, it's these things tend to get more play after the fact in their recorded form than they do live. So even if we don't have anybody in the meeting, we'll share it on the hub, and it'll be a good vehicle to help spread the word about what our needs are, and hopefully that'll open up some new paths for us. So let me just pull up the summary. Ben, do you have anything else you want to go over here in terms of this month's events? Where are we at here? The 15th. So that's here today. And then I guess, is it just one more?
Yeah, the last event that we have is the focus follow-up, which will be looking at lower limb devices. There's been some really significant work, I think, this year so far, coming from the team in Maine, and also in a couple of the directions, including Paraguay. So I'm excited to see what they have to share. And again, they have a healthcare system that has been embracing their work. So something for U.S. chapters to take note of. And even though it's not something that directly applies to our current agreement with the FDA, there are U.S. chapters that are supporting international work that are using lower limb devices. So that's something to think about, that we have these really advanced chapters outside of the U.S. that are working in a collaboration with lower limb, with their healthcare systems.
Nice. Okay. All right. On we go to our discussion topics. So, the discussion we've been having has been this kind of sort of a higher level discussion, just in light of several volunteers reducing their time, one or two retiring from their e-NABLE activities. John and I are getting more pulled in on other activities and are finding that we have less time outside of these meetings to do some of the things that we have done in the past. And so it just kind of brought us to a point where we wanted to revisit, kind of how we're going about things. And while we're making an effort, as we were just talking about, to find people to take on some of these roles, we also don't want to just assume that the way we've been doing things is the way we should be doing things. We're very open to different approaches and want to hear what other people have to think. We've had some great discussions recently. Talked with Eric Bubar, who is looking into sort of how do we describe this, John? Kind of building more of an educational focused network, and help me out here as far as where that.
I think he has a particular interest in research and testing as areas that really fit a university curriculum and are not limited by the shortage of recipients. So that's one conversation, and I think he's taking that seriously, and I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah.
I'll say a little more. Jeff Powell, on the other hand, has done a great job of working with families and has a whole process for helping university chapters sort of build up their expertise. He's interested also. And then I'll also add to my report about our conversation with Ian yesterday. As an example of how this might develop, Brandeis has this, very well-developed internship program, and another part of the internship program has Brandeis interns serving on the boards of nonprofit organizations, mostly in the Boston area. But that's rather similar to the role that Isabella played for us. But if you imagine one of those interns serving on the board of the Amputee Coalition, and then imagine that other Brandeis interns could then work with them to try to develop the outreach program, that opened up a whole new way of thinking about how we might bridge the gap to the recipient community.
It does. And there's actually an interesting aspect of this that I hadn't considered before. When we've explored using interns in the past, there's a challenge with that, because at least in my experience so far, they do wonderful work. The challenge has more to do with the lack of continuity. You have one for a period of time and then you lose them. That's and right. Somebody else comes in. But when I look at this scenario with Ian, he could potentially provide kind of an overlay where when one wraps up, he finds somebody else to kind of step in and can help with the transition and
exactly.
There's definitely some interesting potential there that I look forward to talking to him about. That's great.
Right. So just a footnote to this, I got to say, we had this excellent chapters meeting last week with the European leaders. We're pursuing the possibility that we can be helpful in Ukraine. There's a lot of really interesting activity on the hub. There are several, I think, groundbreaking new devices showing up. Jack's Huawei and the Evo Hand, and for that matter, some print in place possibilities on the horizon. Andrew and Alexander are continuing to do terrific work, even as we are bracing ourselves for the notion that they might get real jobs and becoming less available. Nonetheless, they're doing great work and making great progress. I just want to say that while I think Jeremy and I and Bob are all looking to reduce our centrality, I think the community is really going through a very interesting growth spurt right now. I think it has to do with the reduction of the COVID era, but I think e-NABLE is doing good, and I think this attempt by us to step back and give new leaders a chance to step forward is really a good thing for all of us.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling good.
Yeah, bring some fresh energy into the mix. That always helps. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, but that you got me to think about something that I just want to mention here, John. This 10-year anniversary, we've talked about working on kind of a video compilation of collecting videos from people throughout our community chapters, sharing whatever they want to share about their experience, about people they've helped, about what e-NABLE means to them, about anything. I'm saying this for anybody who might be watching more than anything else. First of all, have we gotten anything yet, Ben? Do you know if anyone has submitted any videos or shared anything?
They have in the hub post.
Okay.
And every time somebody commented, I just put it back up into the poll.
Perfect.
So I think there was a video from Eric Bubar, and there's 2 videos from somebody else. I can pull it up.
Okay, so the thought I had, first of all, I think I can, that's one thing that even though I'm trying to reduce my involvement in some areas, I think I can help with parts of the video. I do a lot of video editing and stuff like that, so I could probably do it more quickly than some others. I will need others to help kind of submitting all the clips and everything, but I could then help with things from there. But the other thing that occurred to me is I use a platform with my business called Riverside, which is a recording platform. It works a lot like Zoom, where you get in on a meeting with one or more people and you can interview them and stuff like that, but you can record it, and the way it records is different. Unlike Zoom, where you're recording from the cloud, it's actually recording directly from their camera and microphone and uploading in the background. So you get a nice recording regardless of internet quality. So it's really good for doing kind of, remote interviews and things like that. So it occurs to me that I could use that platform, it's already paid for, to interview, people in our community, John, Ben, Alexander, basically all the people here in this meeting, plus other key volunteers. We could get on, do an interview. I could record that and then take clips from that as part of the video too. So that would be an easy way to get some additional, little interview clips for this compilation.
And that's called riverside.fm? Is that
Yeah,
it?
riverside.fm. Yeah, that's the platform I use.
Cool.
So just keep that in mind. Ben, maybe you and I could work on that. That's something that you could maybe help me with as far as doing the interviews. I could work with you on that, and I think we could gather more content that way. Even if people don't have videos that have already been done, we could invite them in, ask them some questions, and just get a recording that way.
Sure, and actually, we might as well partner that up with the monthly meetings that we're already doing. So depending on, who we ask, there's different meetings that they could present in, or we could have the conversations in.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, that was a tangent. I'm sorry. Back to what we were talking about. So there have been some great discussions with people that seem to be interested in taking on some of these areas of responsibility. So where do we leave things off with Eric and Jeff? Is there a follow-up conversation there, John? I don't remember where things were left with them.
I actually urged Ian to reach out to them.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's our job right now, is to just keep on prodding them to talk to each other rather than, continue to try to be in the center of that conversation.
Got it.
But I think we do have to do that job.
Okay.
There is a meeting, I think, next Thursday in the morning that Ian proposed. It sounds like Alexander is available, so just keep an eye in that email chain.
Right. That one is for the purpose, I think, for discussion of the device catalog in particular, which is a piece of this puzzle. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So where do we go from here? So today we're going to have the new members meet up, and we'll run through this full list of sort of open needs that we have. Where is that? Over here. And we'll be talking through each of these things. Maybe it's worth taking a look at this, since we haven't for a while, and asking ourselves, do we have everything on here that we want to be talking about? So we have the needs analysis and plan development for the matching platform. That's the one that we're talking about with Deloitte, but it's still an open need. We're looking for a web development and software development leader or coordinator, not necessarily somebody to do all the development, but somebody to coordinate and make sure that the different people doing that kind of work are in sync with one another, not duplicating efforts and coordinating things. revising our web presence to bring together the new e-NABLE France website design, enabling the future and the hub, potentially EWC, but we seem to be leaning more towards the direction of the French site design for matching. We're looking for an event planner. Now, this might be outdated. This was for the 10-year anniversary celebrations, and we're focusing more now on a video than events. Do we want to sort of change this into a video? Well, I mean, now that I just offered to help with that, we might still need help with video editing and compilation, I suppose. What do you think?
You know, personally, given the fuzziness of our birthday, I don't feel the pressure for this, and I would love to give the emerging leadership a chance to define how they want to think about this. So I'm okay just waiting on this to see how.
Okay, we'll just
to
take
see
that
if
one off.
we make this transition.
Someone to develop international partnerships and collaborations. An outreach coordinator. So this is getting the word out more to the people that would need our help, getting the word out about e-NABLE and what we can do. We're looking for organizers for our recurring meetings, somebody to do like what Ben has been doing to help arrange for the guests and topics and coordinate the meetings and share the links and notes and all that good stuff. A lot of work goes into that. Somebody to help edit our YouTube video captions to make sure that they are as accurate as possible and ready for translations. An R&D department tech leader coordinator. So similar to the development coordinator up above, but this is somebody that's overseeing and coordinating amongst our research and development efforts. Again, to make sure that we're not recreating the wheel, make sure that we're building off of one another's work and sharing our progress with one another and that sort of thing. Somebody to manage the e-NABLE help desk and respond to incoming inquiries, which now Rick Williams has taken on and is doing that work. So we'll hopefully get, I think he's going to start joining us in these meetings. We can get an update from him. He is also helping us now to monitor incoming badge requests and taking care of those badges. And Bob, for the time being, is still monitoring our e-NABLE Web Central cases for case facilitation, but we may need somebody to take that over depending on where we go with e-NABLE Web Central. Fundraising, somebody to take the lead on fundraising. Reviewing new chapter submissions and approving chapters. That may likely end up going to Rick Williams, but we wanted to kind of just take things one at a time, not dump everything on him at once. Maintain weekly e-NABLE metrics and reports. So that's what I do before these meetings, having to put all these numbers in here. Masvi felt like he might be able to automate some of this, at least to some extent. So there is some work being done in the background on that, I know. Oops. Going live with the new design for our device catalog, which is still sitting there in a kind of a pending state. Need to go live with those pages and then start porting our other designs in the catalog over to that new design. And then going forward, maintaining that e-NABLE device catalog, getting new designs in there. And it occurred to me that this is not just a matter of waiting for people to submit a new design using the form that we have. People are welcome to do that, but a lot of times they won't. We'll come across something on the hub, like the one I showed you earlier today, where there's some new designs that come up in a link. We need somebody that's going to catch those, grab them, and if it's an open source license, let's bring them in and add them to our catalog. You know, I don't think we want to wait for people to submit things necessarily if it's a relevant design. And then somebody to help document additional ways that school chapters can contribute to e-NABLE, like the device testing that we talked about, R&D. That, again, this might be something that Eric Bubar and his team take on, but we wanted to capture that as a need. Put that down as a medium effort. So that's what we have so far. Can you guys think of anything that is not included here, an area of need or a role that we want to have fulfilled that we can capture on this list?
I had social media on there. I think
Yeah.
I keep my eye on the hub. I post on Facebook from time to time, but I feel like that's kind of as far as I get most of the time with sort of my bandwidth. I think it would be great to, you know, I actually had a conversation with John earlier this week about some work he's doing to try to coordinate social media stuff with his eco restoration project. But
and email newsletters on that note, I added that too, because that could be another. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any others?
I've got two quick suggestions.
Yeah.
First one is little on the second item, the web developer thing.
Yes.
Adding the phrase project manager might be helpful, because I think that in the industry would be the closest job title that matches what we're expecting there. The second suggestion I have would be, I'm not sure if it's intentionally supposed to be a little bit unclear, but when you've got skill and effort ongoing, it makes sense because this is going to be a perpetual obligation, or at least until they hand it off to somebody else. But people might not have a clear indication of how much time is being expected from them.
That's a
So
good.
perhaps something like a estimated hours per week number or something like that might help
Yeah,
people.
so this is more like duration, and this is like scale of effort. And I need to
Right.
figure. You're right. That's an important distinction.
I think that might help us find people for those ongoing roles. Because I think people might be a little bit wary of signing up for something that they, a perpetual obligation that they don't really have an understanding of the scope of.
Got it. Okay. I'm not going to try to do that live, but that's a great point, Andrew. I'll go back through after this meeting and try to break these out in terms of the amount of effort. So it's really most relevant for the ongoing ones, because I think the small, medium, large kind of does identify the level of effort, but for ongoing, right, like how much of your week is going to be needed for something like this kind of a thing. So I'll go through and put some thoughts in for that. Thank you. Any other ideas? Okay, well, so this is what we'll go through in the meeting in about an hour and 15. We'll go through in some detail and then share that recording and see what that yields. But I look forward to then, starting to hand that process over to others. We're just trying to get the ball rolling here. Okay, so I guess let me just ask if anyone has any other thoughts right now, just on the kind of the bigger picture topic of what we're doing here in the U.S., our path forward. The people we're arranging discussions with. I mean, I think we've got some good progress here, and I'm happy to just kind of let that play out. Is there anything else that we'd like to discuss on that now?
Maybe I can just add on to what you mentioned before. In the hub, there was a post from a person who would be a potential device user, and interestingly, their introduction was basically saying, I don't think this is the right place for me. You guys are doing wonderful stuff, but I'm out of here. I got an email this week from another device user asking permission. Can I be involved in the community events? And I said, of course, you're more than welcome. You're really encouraged to come to all of them. But it is interesting that, we've managed to figure out a very comfortable place for makers, but I do think, people like Jeff Powell and other chapters that have sort of long relationships with device users and their families, it really would be, I think, really valuable for us to think about how we can create community with device users. And that's something that, I've tried individually to come up with kind of community meetings through e-NABLE, but I think really the sweet spot is going to be locally having groups like Jeff Powell's Helping Hands, or Paraguay's team in Paraguay, pulling those communities together. And then, how do we get some of those community members involved in the hub? What are they looking for? What are their interests and needs? And it seems like, maybe we're missing something in terms of making this sort of a inviting space for some of those users.
Maybe. It occurs to me also, though, Ben, that those two might be related, that if somebody like Jeff Powell is coordinating, say, a get-together in his area with families, that he might be in a good position to sort of educate them about, the hub and encourage them to get involved. And he might be able to in turn share materials and kind of a model of, hey, here's how we're doing these gatherings, and here's the stuff I share with them, and here's the stuff that we talk about and do, and that sort of thing, so that others in their communities could sort of start to duplicate that. Otherwise, kind of give us a template of how he's doing these. That might be useful.
Right. Yeah. And if there was some sort of like community group where different chapters were, as part of their feedback process, encouraging members to join, a space on the hub where people could be sort of sharing their explorations using devices and that kind of stuff. That could be a way to kind of build this up from their perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't think it makes sense to move on to some of the other topics in here because there's nothing really time sensitive on that. And I would rather give myself some extra time to get ready for the next meeting. So let me just ask if anybody else has anything that you'd like to discuss on any topic today. Otherwise, we can wrap a little early.
Super quick update
I
on
think
the app
that's-
front.
Yes.
About 10 minutes ago, Alexander and I were able to figure out how to get our first exported assembly out of Onshape.
Nice.
So
You got
it
something you can
is,
show us?
well, it's literally just like
Oh, this is
a,
the bare bones one. Okay.
well, it's not even a feature. This isn't integrated into the app. This is just a set of requests in an application called Postman that I've been able to string together to figure out how to export this stuff.
Were you saying that you're able to do it from the assembly that he was working with there?
That's
on?
correct. It
Wow.
appears that anything in Onshape can be exported if you bang your head on the API hard enough. There's no
for-
documentation for any of this, so it's very exploratory. But it says
For those-
So listen, let me point out that you and Jeremy are the only people who really understand what
That's
you're
what I was
talking
just
about.
going to say. I was just going to explain what we're talking about here. So this is in relation to a project that we have going on, which we hope to share soon, where we're developing an application to make it much easier to parametrically scale and get all the files that you need for 3D printing for initially one design, then a second, and then other designs. It's something that we'll build over time. The Onshape platform is being used as kind of a middle ground. That's where the designs get hosted and then parameterized and then exported from. And we ran into a challenge where in trying to do a particular aspect of one of our designs using chainmail, Alexander figured out a way to build out this chainmail as an assembly in Onshape, which is different from a part. And we hit a roadblock because the API Andrew is using only lets him export parts. It doesn't let him export assemblies. And that's what we're talking about here. He found a workaround, which is very good news. Now we can move forward with this project and share it that much sooner with the community. It's going to be very cool. It's going to let you get not just scaled, not just 150% scale, but scale to whatever size you need, including potentially non-uniform scaling, but keep certain features the same. So keeping screw holes the same size, keeping our tolerances between moving parts the same size. This is something we've never been able to pull off in our history. And so it's very exciting. And it will not only be a design that offers these features, but a framework that will allow future designs to also plug into this and offer the same. Cool stuff.
And indeed, the first installment, the first alpha or beta of this will be delivering the print in place Phoenix, which is a Phoenix hand that won't need assembly except for the sleeve, all parametric. That will set the stage for the Evo hand being delivered through this whole thing. And interestingly and disturbingly, we can now see our way towards a print in place Evo hand that would be delivered through this same channel. And for that matter, a potentially print in place Evo gripper hand.
And let me
But
just
we
point
don't-
out the technical challenge, the reason you haven't seen a lot of print in place stuff before is because everybody's 3D printers are a little bit different. One printer might do a certain tolerance, have a 0.25 millimeter tolerance. Another one might have a 0.35 millimeter. And so where one might give you a perfect print of a print in place design, the same thing printed on another printer, the parts might stick and it won't work. Now
different filaments.
Different filaments even, that's right. There's all kinds of variables. Now with a parametric approach, if you print one out and the parts don't move the way you want, all you have to do is go in and adjust that parameter for the tolerance, increase the gap a little bit, print another one. And as soon as you get one that works, now you know what your tolerance value is for your printer. And for the next design, you just plug in that same value and you're good to go. So this is a very powerful thing. Looking forward to sharing that. Anybody else have anything to share? Anything at all?
Let me just say, on that particular trajectory, the Andrew platform, the Alexander designs, future designs based on the workflow, et cetera, we're going to need people to take those forward because we are getting savvy enough not to count on the continued availability of Andrew and Alexander. So are those points covered in the project list that you just went through, the champions needed list that you just went through?
Fair point. I don't know that they are. I mean, let's see, how would we put that on there? I mean, I've got an R&D tech leader coordinator, and we have the web development, project manager, but we don't really have a role for the people under there. I mean, we actually need people to do web and software development. We need people to actually do R&D and design work. So maybe those should be roles on here as well. Yeah.
I can give you the tech stack this is built on again if you want that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll probably come at right now. Let me keep it general and generic, and then I think we can lay out different types of skill sets depending on what platforms we're looking for help with. But I don't think I need to go into that today necessarily.
Okay.
Is there any mention on the document about the chapter management toolkit?
Hang on one second.
That was something that Masby helped to provide some of sort of the skills involved with that, and we did put that together in the job description that we put on hand.
I was distracted. What? Tell me again what you're asking for.
Do we have any reference on this list for the chapter management toolkit for the hub?
We only have where is it? Here, just reviewing chapter submissions and approving them. So basically the badging side of chapters. That's the only thing we have referenced. Would you like me to add something?
Yeah. And again, we have, in a previous email, I've got the skill set from Masby that would be needed, but it'd be great to have somebody that can help us connect the dots, basically allowing chapters to edit their information. So instead of doing chapter spotlights and chapter updates on our end, it'd be something that each chapter could update their information, and then that would automatically update it on the map, and then it would sort of maybe show like the last 10 chapters that were edited. It would just kind of open up the auditing process to being sort of do it yourself. So I guess
that sounds like something that would just fit into this web developer role, because it would be a different, stack maybe, but that's essentially just a different development effort, right? As far as building that capability, is that what you're looking for? Because once
I would agree that this is related to the developer.
I mean, it sounds like each chapter,
great.
once the function is built, each chapter would kind of maintain their own information, right?
Right. Okay, great.
Okay.
Masby, what did you just say?
I said, yeah, I agree with Jeremy that this is more related to the developer, not
Okay.
a specific other individual.
I mean, maybe we split these out into, let's see, help me out, Andrew. How would we describe, if we wanted to specify for your project, I mean, what kind of developer are we looking for? And let's separate these out. We'll have one for the hub.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm filling two responsibilities that I think could be advertised separately because the person doesn't need to have both skill sets to contribute. We've got the backend API stuff, which is all TypeScript. So like a backend engineer with JavaScript, TypeScript experience, ideally Nest.js. Also bonus points if they know Docker.
Doctor. Oh, Docker.
Yes.
Docker, is that, do I have
Correct.
that right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the other one would be somebody who knows React, ideally TypeScript, and ideally they'd have experience with Ionic.
Okay, and this one was software developer for back end, and this is for front end.
Correct.
Okay, that helps. And then we'll have a web developer for the hub. Masvi, what if we wanted somebody that was going to help with the kinds of work that you've been doing, what would those skill sets be?
PHP and JavaScript.
And in that vein, Masvi, Ben is doing this really interesting article about Dean Rock and his history. And to do it, he was able to use some of the tools that we put in place back in the day for searching back into the original Google Plus archive. I will remind us both that there was that interesting visualization that I prototyped using a whole weird Python stack, that you did a very stripped down version in JavaScript and that we never really put forward. But as I'm thinking about the continued evolution of e-NABLE, a visualization of all of this stuff and an interface to all of this stuff remains interesting. So today I'm sort of feeling that that project should also be put on the front burner, even though neither you nor I apparently feel like taking it across the finish line. So is there anything that needs to be added to this list in order to find someone who could do it?
Nope.
Okay.
It is the same
The same stack.
same web developer. And by the way, as I mentioned in I can't remember, what was it, a month ago or something? The macroscope is online. It's just that it needs some TLC. And
That's right.
But
it's done.
Here's another interesting aspect to this. The web developer, we're looking for PHP and JavaScript. That's pretty much the same skill set we need if we choose to adopt this e-NABLE France platform for matching. It's built on WordPress and PHP. My guess is that same person could help us get that going if we wanted to. Just something to think about.
Right.
PHP and JavaScript, as well, Andrew knows with JavaScript, is a very broad languages with many different frameworks and approaches. So just the boilerplate PHP dev might not be able to handle everything.
Got it.
But it could be a start to figure out and develop at least some bits of our infrastructure.
Got it.
e-NABLE France is built on WordPress, right?
WordPress with PHP, yeah.
Yeah, being like a WordPress developer, I think, is a job title in and of itself, and that would be a pretty common one at that.
Correct.
Good point. Say with PHP, because any WordPress guy might not have that part of it, right?
And as long as we've got this video recording, and John mentioned the macroscope, Masvi or Jeremy, do you want to just open that up really quick just to point out where it is in the hub?
I'd be happy to, but I don't know myself. Where do I go?
lab.enable.org/macroscope.
It's cool.
Well, that's a link we should put like in our sidebar or something in the hub.
Well,
right?
the lab subdomain was intended for just curiosities and random projects that aren't live yet. So that's why we have that lab.
Jeremy,
subdomain.
if you click and drag and make a square around one small part of that timeline, you zoom in.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems such a waste not to share this. This is so
That's
powerful.
right. It's been sitting around for 2 years now.
Also, HumHub at some point made an
And it opens
update
up the post
where we
directly.
can link to a specific comment. If you remember, John, when we started out, we had an issue
Oh,
where we
really?
could not link to a comment. And so instead we linked to a post. So now after whatever update, we can actually link to the specific comment.
So listen, can we take a step towards making this visible by, I guess the right way to do it would be a space. You could also, I mean, the other thing is that the colorful version of this, which is what I spent a lot of time working on, is an impressive piece of work also. And as you have pointed out, it's really just someone who understands CSS who would be needed to port the styling over from the prototype that I did.
It's still JavaScript. It's still JavaScript. It's just that there was an issue that the Python version of your library had some features that the JavaScript didn't, and that was what caused the pause, because I couldn't figure out how to do it at that time, and then we got sidetracked, and life goes on.
Well,
so it needs some work done, but I mean,
Is that your
technically
introduction,
it is done.
What was that?
That was your introduction post?
That was my
Now?
yeah.
Well, and you continue to be a very busy man, Masvi. So it's not like we could just get this behind us, right?
If you guys really want to push the macroscope forward, I'll elevate the this project a little bit, and then I can probably hopefully get it done myself in a
Wow.
reasonable amount of time. The chapter API stuff is just a colossal thing, and I keep chipping away at it, but it's a really big thing to do. So
Right,
the
but this
ETA
is a
is
smaller
getting
thing.
pushed forward and forward. But this one is a smaller thing, yes. And if you guys really want to push this forward,
Well, I'll
I
tell you,
can do my
personally,
best.
I think this would be the 10-year anniversary birthday cake. This would be a way of really celebrating and exposing 10 years of e-NABLE. So I think that would be cool.
And again, I did use it, doing some work trying to dig through the archives. Our search in the hub is sort of like non-chronological, the normal search. It's helpful, but kind of bizarre. But this timeline feature, I was able to drill down really fast and find the very first post between John Curran at the Rotary and Dean Rock, and sort of follow their collaboration.
Yeah, it's a much better search tool than what we have in the hub. That's a good point. We almost can use that as our search for the hub, the way it works.
And Masvi, does that thing continue? That thing
does it continue to update?
Is the data live? Does it continue to collect current activity?
I just updated before I shared the link, but it just needs to be added to a
cron job.
repeating a cron job, yeah, and it's very resource friendly. It takes like a second or so to update. So this can run it can run every few minutes, really.
So
constantly updating.
e-NABLE will thank you if you bake the birthday cake. I think this
finally
this
e-NABLE
really
will
nice.
thank me. That is great. That is great. Okay.
Let me take it one step further. Masvi, do you mind if I put this down as a to-do for you to go live with that?
Sure. Okay, but I can't promise when, but yeah, sure, go ahead.
Absolutely. That's just fine. So that this is only so that we can not forget about it.
Right. That's great.
It's a birthday without a specific day in mind.
Yeah, and by the way, Mr. Snark, for the record, for those who haven't been tuning in, we would pay Masvi to do things if he was willing to be paid to do them. So
thank you for that. That will be a big benefit. Okay, got to wrap, folks. I need to go get ready for this next meeting, and hope to see some of you.
Jeremy, I have a note on this next meeting. You've got a long list there.
Yes.
And you're going to be going through thing by thing by thing, but it's a really valuable list. If it's possible for me to share a screen at the same time, and if you send me a link to the spreadsheet, I might try to do a visual diagram as sort of a live entertainment, so that people don't just get bored hearing an enumeration of tasks.
Well, the reason I was trying to get out of this meeting is because I was hoping to get all this into a slide deck, so I'm not just showing a spreadsheet. I don't know if I'm going to. But let me see what I can do.
Do it, then go do whatever you do, and I'll see you there. And I can do or refrain from a song and dance in parallel.
All right, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.